Greetings and welcome to the 7th episode of Morrowind Modding Reviews. And I know it's been a really long time since we last did an episode in this series. In fact, the last one I can think of was probably way back in April, so it's been a ridiculously long time. And to just give a quick refresher, this is a series dedicated to showing off texture packages side by side for particular architecture sets, and then assigning them some numerical ratings based on my own personal preferences. And today we're going to be doing the third part of the Hlaalu sub-series, showing off 5 different texture packages for the Hlaalu architecture set side by side. And we're going to start out with the ornate Hlaalu texture replacer by Taran. Now, to sort of start out, we're going to check out the city of Suran with these new textures applied. And personally, I have to say that I really think that this is a lovely texture package that works quite well with the Hlaalu buildings here. It's a sort of white plaster texture that works well with the Hlaalu aesthetic overall, at least I think so. And you also notice that there's a bit of a yellow outlining to the buildings at the base, particularly noticeable here along the canals and bridges of Balmora. And it has to be said that there's, in general, 2 schools of thought about Hlaalu texture replaces. There's the darker, more tan versions, and then there's the whiter ones here, and if you like a lighter hue with your Hlaalu buildings, you can't go wrong with this one. This is definitely one of the better ones in the lighter hue category. And to just sort of take a closer look at the textures being applied to these buildings here, you'll notice that it's pretty detailed. There's some patterns going on with the walls here, and it's, again, that sort of plaster-like feel. Sort of moving on to the interior side of things, you'll notice there's an interesting mixture of interior textures in use here. You have the white plaster walls, as you might expect, but there's also a wide variety of patterns being used along the ceiling there, and there's also this sort of floral pattern being used along the floors, as you can sort of see in this staircase. And this is the one thing I'm just not 100% sure about, because I don't know if these floral patterns are really all that lore-friendly in terms of vanilla Morrowind content. But other than that, this is a great texture package. It's some really good quality, high-resolution textures, and the interior textures are really great, I think, other than the fact that they might not be 100% lore-friendly. So I'd like to give this a 5 out of 5, and I recommend it for players who want something high resolution, but also something just a little bit different from standard fare Dunmeri style Hlaalu architecture. And I do think it's a really great texture package for those looking for a lighter hue texture for Hlaalu buildings. Our next mod is Hlaalu bump mapped by Logan. Now, many of you are probably already familiar with this mod. We have covered it in the past on Morrowind Modding Showcases, and it is a very popular texture replacer, and there's a good reason for that. It is a really high quality, bumped mapped texture replacer for the Hlaalu architecture set. Logan has done really an amazing job of just creating a really high resolution, very detailed looking, and vanilla friendly texture replacer, as you can see here with the city of Suran, and also here with the city of Balmora. Now, what's also included in this texture package is new textures for the Hlaalu windows, doors, and also the stone plazas. As you'll notice with this road here, it has a pretty nice stone ground texture that is, very high resolution, I would say. And again, it just has to be said, this is all very highly detailed. This is like something you might find in Oblivion or Skyrim quality content, except here it is in Morrowind, and it's really quite well done. And you can sort of see an up-close angle of these walls here. And sort of going on to the interior textures, you can see that it's very similar to the exterior. You've got these same sort of high-resolution textured walls. You got something of a white stone floor, and the ceiling is mostly the same color as the walls, with a couple of patterns you'll notice up there. And again, it just has to be said that this is a really high quality, high resolution texture package that is sort of just in keeping with the original feel of the Hlaalu in vanilla Morrowind. At least in my opinion, it's a very lore friendly texture package. But with that said, there is one minor downside, and that is, it doesn't really play well on lower-end computers. I've heard back from players in the past that they run into a lot of lag with this particular texture package, so that's something to keep in mind. But otherwise, there's overall some really great quality textures here. They're bump mapped, which is a great bonus, and it stays true to the original Hlaalu feel in vanilla Morrowind, and it's very lore friendly. So this gets a 5 out of 5 from me, and it's recommended for players who just want some high quality texture replaces that really update the visuals of the game, but are still, lore friendly and keeping with the vanilla Morrowind style. Next up we have Solar Structures Hlaalu by Mr. Swiveler. Now this is a sort of darker texture replacer package for the Hlaalu architecture set when compared to the last two that we've shown. And as you can see here with the city of Suran, it sort of has a brown, almost muddied kind of tan-like coloration to it. And another thing to note is the sort of green-like outlining that you'll find on the buildings, bridges, and canals. And I'm not really exactly sure what type of green that is exactly. It's a sort of dark and muddied, but still obviously very much in the greenish spectrum. And it sort of adds a bit of contrast, framing these light brown walls here with the Hlaalu buildings. And in any event, this is a fairly lore-friendly texture package. It's a bit different from the vanilla Hlaalu style, but still pretty similar overall. And here up close you can sort of see the walls have a kind of plaster-like texture feel to them. Now the interior textures are a bit different and somewhat of a mismatch. You have the plaster walls with a bordering pattern, green ceilings, and these sort of very odd-looking floor tiles that appear to have some sort of shield-like designs on them. And to be honest, the interior textures don't really feel like they match up all that well. And in my personal opinion, the floor textures in particular just don't really work out that well with the rest of the interior textures included here, and kind of stand out as an odd choice for the Hlaalu buildings in general. That said though, I believe Mr. Swiveler may have been working on a new version of this texture set, so just keep in mind that this video may be a tad bit out of date. And overall, in conclusion, there's some good quality exterior textures here, and most of the textures are fairly lore friendly. And something I kind of forgot to mention during the video here is that this texture set does include some new textures for the doors, which is a nice little bonus. The only real downside for me was that the floor textures just felt a little bit off. And overall, I give this a 4.8 out of 5, and I recommend it for players who want traditional Hlaalu style exteriors, but maybe something a little bit different on the interiors. Now the next texture package that we're going to be taking a look at is Phelan's Natural Stone Hlaalu Retexture by Phelan. Now if you've watched previous episodes of Morrowind Modding Reviews, you know that Phelan made an absolute ton of different styled Hlaalu retextures that are all just completely different. There's about 4 or 5 different ones. And this particular one, as you can see with the city of Suran, sort of specialized in a cold, stone-like architectural style for the Hlaalu buildings. And this is a pretty neat texture replacer. I mean, this natural stone is just absolutely lovely in my opinion. It's kind of a slightly high resolution stonework that works out fairly well with some just plain tan outlining on the buildings and stairwells, as you can see here. And it really is kind of a nice texture package that sort of gives Balmora and Taran a very different look from the vanilla version of the game. And Phelan is just great at doing that, like his Egyptian Hlaalu retexture is another one that just does a fantastic job of changing the style of Hlaalu buildings. Now on the interior side of things, you've got some more of that great looking natural stonework populating the walls, but you also notice that the ceilings are an absolutely lovely shade of royal blue outlined in golden trim. And the floors are composed of a sort of reddish-brown hardwood, and all of it works really well together. And you also notice that there's some new textures included for the doors as well. Now I'm not sure how lore-friendly this texture package is, but I do have to say that it works fairly well together. And in conclusion, there's overall really good quality interior and exterior textures here, and it does include door textures, which again, not every texture package does that. But it may not exactly be 100% lore friendly, that's the one downside there. So overall, this is a 5 out of 5 for me, and I recommend it for players who just want something different in appearance for Hlaalu architecture. And of course, if you're a fan of stone buildings, you can't really do much better than this for the Hlaalu architecture set. For our very last texture replacer of the day, we're going to be taking a look at Spewboy's Hlaalu 1 by Spewboy. Now, it has to be said that out of all the texture replacers that we've covered in this episode, this is probably the strangest and most different out of all of them. And it is a very odd-looking texture replacer package, and the reason for that is that it's basically just one large solid color. And you don't really see that a whole lot with most texture replacers out there. These buildings are basically one large color scheme of gold and orange. It's a goldish-orange color combination. And it should be noted that this texture package does include new textures for the windows, which is a nice addition. But it is very strange looking, I have to say. You don't really see this a whole lot. And it almost kind of gives Balmora here a kind of futuristic look. It's a very solid, very smooth looking texture scheme, and with a slightly darker coloration on the bottom of the walls here and a lighter color combination at the top. Now, the interiors fare a bit better from the exterior in terms of variety. You've got this nice stonework looking floor, and you have a lighter colored ceiling. Of course, you still have the solid colors of the walls that you found on the exterior, but the thing is I actually think these solid color textures work a lot better in an interior environment than they do necessarily in the exterior side of things. And overall, in conclusion, these are decent quality looking textures. I'm not really an expert on that. And the interior textures, they look good overall, but it could definitely use some more color variety, and the exterior textures are just a little bit dull, I would say. Seeing a whole lot of the same color over and over again can get a bit boring. And overall, I give this a 4.2 out of 5, and I recommend it for players looking for a more solid color scheme for Hlaalu architecture. That's not really my thing, but quite possibly it might be something you would enjoy. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I do want to apologize for the long lapse in videos. We will be continuing this series on a regular basis from now on. In fact, we already have the next episode ready to go. That'll be airing next Tuesday, covering Retextures. But anyway, you'll have that to look forward to, so I'll see you all next time.